Hey everybody, this is Scott Moore and you're watching the SMC Journal program. I'm happy that you're here, and today we're going to be talking about Prometheus. Is it the new standard monitoring solution for everything, or is it just for Kubernetes? Well, that's what we want to discuss today. Obviously, I don't have time to get into all the details about what Prometheus is, how to install it, and all those things. I'll go over some brief things, but this is more of an angle of how does this affect us in the performance community, performance engineers, performance testers, and SREs who are focused on the performance aspect of software and software quality. So Prometheus is just gained a lot of traction over the last few years. It's actually exponential, and I want to show you that in just a minute. But the biggest question is, if you're already deploying Kubernetes deployed applications, if you're already working with microservices, you're probably knee-deep in Prometheus as well. But there are also other people who have not been working with Kubernetes, but they've been hearing about Prometheus, and they're still doing traditional monitoring. Maybe they are interested in using Prometheus to enhance what they're doing, or maybe they just need to be prepared because this Kubernetes is the way their company is going. So whether any of that's true, I hope that you'll get something out of this program. So as an overview, where I might start if I wanted to know what Prometheus was is Prometheus.io, and I would just look through there. And what is it? It's metrics. It's anything that you want to find out about the infrastructure or application metrics or anything that a metric has been created for. Prometheus can grab that information and hold it and display it and provide your application information to help you make these business decisions that we've been making all these years when we're doing load tests. Now, I used to use Windows Performance Monitor on Windows applications. For Unix-based systems, operating system would provide rstat, vmstat, and other SAR, other tools to monitor. But Prometheus is something that is natively sort of deployed with Kubernetes and has become sort of the de facto standard without anybody actually claiming it to be that. So if you're not familiar with the architecture, there's a great article out here on Opsani, and any link that I show you here or anything I reference to, I'll provide the information in the description and links in the YouTube video for the archive. So let's just take a look at this for a second. We've got a Prometheus server, and it's storing all of this metric data. And then I used to call these agents, but probably a bad word to use here. They're called exporters, and there's over 150 of these things by multiple companies. It's one case where I feel like the open source community has really come together and benefited the performance community directly because of this, and benefited the developer community as well. But these exporters are the actual metrics, the indicators, the SLIs, if you will. They go back to Prometheus, and it retrieves it through an HTTP call. So initially, Prometheus was made to just give you here's what's going on now with the Kubernetes cluster or whatever it's monitoring. It wasn't really meant for long-term storage, and it wasn't really that scalable. So why am I so excited about it right now? Well, the first thing I want to show you is the exponential growth of Prometheus. So let's take a look at that. This has both Grafana and Prometheus, because Grafana is really the main go-to visualization tool for Prometheus. Look at this, 2016 to 2019. This is an old graph, 200 to 800% increase, and it's only continued to be this way as Kubernetes has continued to be popular in the IT community. So I had it kind of on my radar when Amazon began talking about it. And Amazon introduced this service over a year ago in sort of a preview or a beta called AMP, an Amazon Managed Service for Prometheus. Hang on a second. Did somebody say AMP? That means we have to go to the AMP cam when somebody mentions AMP. AMPs. Yeah. So let's get back to what we're talking about. This particular beta just went general availability just a few weeks ago. And what's exciting about this is, so a cloud vendor who already has metrics, so there's already CloudWatch, which provides some metrics, is now offering Prometheus as a service. And look at what they've done. They've put Prometheus with a Grafana agent and their own distribution of open telemetry, which is out of scope for this show, but we'll be talking about that in a future show, all as a Kubernetes cluster provided on Amazon EKS, the Elastic Kubernetes service. So you don't have to worry about the back-end hardware that's running this. It's just provided as a service. It's scalable as well, and so it's already there for you. So you don't even have to configure and set this up. And this is now part. So we're deploying the monitoring solution very much like we deploy our Kubernetes applications. And they're also using Cortex here. And if you're not familiar with Cortex, Cortex is what solves that problem I mentioned earlier about Prometheus not being made necessarily for long-term or very scalable. This makes it scalable, made for multi-tenancy. So that's not the only solution out there. There's also Timescale DB, which is a time series database that sits on top of PostgreSQL, InfluxDB, which is used a lot with Grafana. So there's lots of choices out there. So I'm sure Azure offers this. You can even see on Cortex it works with Google Cloud and Azure. And I'm sure AWS, the main cloud vendors, are all going to vie for your dollar because they want you to have this Prometheus service and they want it to be long-term storage because that adds up. Because again, there's a lot of monitors out there. So really it's about right-sizing how long of a window you need and what you need to be looking at. So let's come back out from high level down to us as performance testers and performance engineers. What are some of the takeaways as we look at Prometheus and find out what it is, what it does, and we learn about it? What should we be thinking about? Well, number one, if I'm doing performance testing today and I'm using, say, a load testing tool, I want to know what are the tools who have a Prometheus integration. So right now I know that K6 has one, and K6 now being part of Grafana Labs, it makes sense. This is a developer-centric product. Prometheus is how developers are getting these metrics, so it makes sense that there would be an integration there. The open source community that uses JMeter has a Prometheus listener out there on GitHub that you can check out, which I think is great. Also, commercial tool Neoload. In December 2020, with version 7.7, they released a Prometheus monitoring solution, a native integration with Neoload. And at first, that integration was just, you set it up and it monitors what you initially set up. They have a later version which actually supports wildcard searches. So as you increase load and you have auto scaling turned on and you've got more nodes and more pods to monitor, it monitors those with wildcard searches, and then as you scale down, it forgets about them. It only monitors what you need to monitor at the time. So that's really cool. I'm sure there are other vendors out there that probably have a Prometheus integration, and if you know of any, please let me know. But I think this all points to the fact that if you're a performance engineer, if you don't know about Prometheus, you need to learn about it. It's not just the architecture, but how do you interface with Prometheus to get the metrics that you need. Now there's a language that you'll need to learn to get this, to learn it. It's called PromQL, or Prometheus Query Language. So very much like, how do I get data from a database? I need to learn how to query that database and get the information I need. Prometheus has the same sort of thing. You can grab a book, a cheat sheet, look online. There's plenty of articles out there that would walk you through some of this. And so it's getting easier and easier, but there's a little bit of complexity there, but it's not that you can't learn it in a short amount of time. So takeaway is 2022 is a great time to learn Prometheus and PromQL and start working with it. And even if you're not doing 100% Kubernetes deployed applications, you should probably start thinking about how you can enhance the monitoring you're doing now with load testing with some Prometheus exporters that may provide some additional information you're not getting today. Third thing is, if you're a load testing vendor and you don't have a Prometheus integration as part of your roadmap, you should probably put that on there and prioritize it in short order, because this is going to be in demand, in my opinion, a lot from this point forward. And lastly, don't get overwhelmed with all the metrics that can be provided from Prometheus. I've seen this happen in the past with other types of monitoring. Companies will divide up groups and say, you just provide the performance test with the end user experience. The server admins, or whatever that group is today, whatever it's called, they'll provide you with information. Or, you know what, you're not getting any permission to these servers. You can import that later. We'll give you a log, we'll give you a CSV or something. You import that into your load test and then you can work with it. Or maybe there's no interaction whatsoever. And then there's the frustration. Oh, we're just going to give up, or we're just not going to monitor. We'll just get end user transaction times. We'll throw it over the wall to whoever and let them look it up. That's just not the way to do IT. So I say that Prometheus, it's good that it would become a standard, and I think it should be a monitoring standard. And it's not just because of Kubernetes. I've had to do plenty of performance tests where I had to monitor Windows servers, for example. And you think, well, perfmon, you give Windows Performance Monitor, which is built into every Windows operating system, provides those basic infrastructure metrics. And it sounds so simple. Just give me an account with the right permissions, limited permissions, so that I can get those remote calls to that server that tells me, what's the CPU doing right now? How much memory am I consuming? And I pull that into my load test solution and correlate the information at the end of the test, and it sounds wonderful. But those permissions, those security issues, don't always work as the documentation says they should. So you get one of two things. No access, and we'll give you some roundabout way to get a file later, which holds everything up and is not eloquent at all. Or you're not going to do any monitoring. We just want transaction times. Just give up. Or they end up giving too much permissions. We'll just give you this new consultant person who doesn't even work here all the access that you need, all the admin to these machines. It's just a test environment. What could go wrong? Which probably isn't a good idea from an InfoSec perspective, right? But then there is a Windows WMI exporter for Windows. And actually, I want to show you that right now. So I set this up on a Windows 2019 standard server. There's an article on Dev Connected. It's a great article that walks you step by step through how to install this and run it. So I just followed the instructions. I think this took me about 10 minutes to do. So once it's installed, it runs as a background service, and you can see here it's just called Windows Exporter that's running on the services table out on Windows. And then it runs a small web server on a local port of the machine. In this case, I'm using 9182. And if you want to, you can look at that actual page, the metrics page. This is what the Prometheus server is doing. It's going out there, making that HTTP request, scraping this data, and then pulling those data points into a graph. So I like that. It's an elegant solution. It can be shut down at any time very easily. And I think there's probably less risk of getting the information that way. So I'm actually really a fan of this, and so I want to know what you think. Am I wrong? Should Prometheus be the standard way that we do not only Kubernetes monitoring, but bare metal server monitoring or virtual machines, whatever we used to use, I think Prometheus might be the way to go. You may feel differently. You can always reach me at scottmoore.consulting, and here is a link to my LinkedIn profile as well as my Twitter handle, which is LoadTester. And finally, you can reach me by email at help@scottmoore.consulting. So if you liked the content of this video and you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel so I continue to bring you this type of information to the performance engineering community, and we can keep doing this. I would like to thank my sponsors for this show today. Haymaker Coffee Company is a brand new coffee startup out of North Florida, and many of you know that I really like coffee and I like lots of different kinds of coffee. I recommend the Haymaker Dark Blend. The beans, grind it yourself and make it strong. If you go to the site and use my specific code PERF10, they will immediately give you 10% off, because they know you are efficient and you want financial performance. So definitely go to Haymaker Coffee Company and check out their coffee. They are friends of ours. I also highly recommend, if your business is taking credit card transactions today, especially in the retail market, and you want to minimize the overhead of the cost of all the fees that you're paying, you want to right size those fees and get more money back in your pocket, contact Bright Payment Solutions today and let them know that Scott Moore sent you, because I believe that they can help you save a lot of money. So that's the show for today, and we will see you on the next SMC Journal, where it's all about performance. Bye-bye.